Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wisdom from North, the place where we're diving into the deeper meaning of life and asking the big questions. My name is Jannica, and today I have one of the leading authorities on out-of-body experiences and astral projection on my show, William Buhlman. Now, William has been exploring out-of-body experiences for over 40 years, and he's a trainer at the Monroe Institute, and he has written 3 best-selling books, including Secrets of the Soul, Adventures Beyond the Body, and the latest one, Adventures in the Afterlife. Welcome to Wisdom from North, William. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you, Jannica.
I'm very excited about speaking to you today because I discovered you in an interview on Afterlife TV with Bob Olson, and I really felt that you had a lot of knowledge about out-of-body experiences. And I'm very fascinated by this subject because I've had some experiences myself in 2007 where I consciously tried to explore the astral world. But let me start with going back because I find it very interesting that 40 years ago you were an atheist.
Well, yes. I was essentially an atheist from childhood, from the end of childhood. I did not believe, I had rejected the concept of religion probably when I was around 19 years old, 20 years old. So it's been a long, I did not connect with it at all, or it didn't resonate with me.
But then a friend of you had an out-of-body experiences, wasn't it like that? And then all of a sudden you had one.
Yes, a friend of mine had a spontaneous out-of-body experience, a good friend of mine, and it motivated me to have the same. It was a life-changing experience for my friend. And I became totally intrigued by the topic, even though I didn't believe it was possible. But I figured if he could do it, why can't I? So I studied the topic, and I found a technique called the target technique, which I practiced for 24 days. And on the 24th day, literally, I had my first self-initiated out-of-body experience. And it was a mind blower. It's a total change of my everything, changed my entire viewpoint of life. I realized that we do continue, that other beings exist, that it's a multidimensional universe. And I actually met dead people in some of my out-of-body experiences, which are just people. They're just living in a different vibrational reality. And it changed my entire outlook on everything to do with life and our continuing evolution as consciousness. It's a big life changer.
Yes, it was for me too. I remember the day because right after I woke up that morning, I was walking around and thinking like, why are not everybody talking about this? This is going on and nobody's talking about it. I've never heard about it in school, and here I am having a knowing all of a sudden. After 27 years, now I know that there's something more. It was truly, mind-blowing. So,
yes, indeed. It changes everything because suddenly you become a knower instead of a believer.
Right.
And that really is a huge shift of consciousness.
So tell me, because this is my perception of it, that when we go to sleep, when we dream, we go to this astral realm. That's what I've been taught. Like, I don't know, like have had these experiences, but I don't know really where I went. But what I've learned is that we go to this astral plane when we sleep, and that we are actually out of our bodies when we sleep. We just don't know it. So when we're out of body, we're going to the same place. Is that your perspective too?
Yes, basically, yes. Most people have no idea how busy they are at night. We're non-physical beings, and at night, most people begin to disconnect to some level with their physical body. Many of them just hover out of sync with their body. I've witnessed this myself during my out-of-body experiences, where you see people literally, their energy body or their consciousness is floating out of their physical body. But some people, I think it's basically due to a lack of fear. Some people actually are moving around and doing things at night while their body is asleep. They're communicating, they're They're learning lessons. So there's even schools that people go to. So in other words, the world is a much more active place than we think it is. It's a multidimensional universe, and we are multidimensional beings. We're a microcosm of the universe. And unfortunately, our sciences are still way behind in recognizing this. And yes, at night, many, many people have all kinds of experiences. The astral dimension is what I refer to. It's the next vibrational level, the next major vibrational level to the physical. And it exists. It's not up or down. It's here. It's just it's less dense reality. And that's where many people go during sleep and during their OBEs.
Okay, so many things I wanna, talk about here. Firstly, you say that some people are just hovering over the body, but when I dream, I remember that I'm in all sorts of places. Am I really there in another body, or is it my psyche that's there, or my consciousness? Well, I'm a little bit confused because I thought the astral body was going where I have the dreams, if you understand my question.
Yeah, we're very complex beings. I don't feel that all dreams are out-of-body experiences.
Oh.
I don't. I have found for 40 years I've been having these experiences, and I've written 3 books about them and studied them extensively. And there are a multitude, because we're multidimensional beings, there's a lot, and the unseen world is much more complicated than the simplicity that we try to put it. Many of our experiences are our actual experiences, but not all of them. Oh. Our mind is a very powerful thing, and our mind can also create imagery, internal imagery for us. Now, it's still a learning opportunity. There's still experiences, but I separate the 2 experiences. When you have an out-of-body experience, just to be clear, generally they're pretty mundane. Based on, again, I've gotten 18,000 responses from surveys, and an actual OBE is generally, for many people, it's a very mundane. It's like observing your physical reality for most people, without all of in other words, there's not flying hippos and crazy stuff going on around you. It's a very grounded experience. You're re-experiencing your physical reality in a way, in a different vibrational level. And many of the dreams I don't consider those, they're more internal creations of our mind. Just to be clear. Now, but there's mixtures of this. Flying dreams, which many people have, and they're wonderful. Lucid dreamers, that's one of their goals, is to fly. Generally speaking, I feel that flying dreams are our mind's interpretation, especially if we can control it, of an out-of-body experience. And that is also going on. It depends on the individual's level of conscious awareness during the experience. It's always about our conscious awareness during every event or every experience we have. And that's what determines let's just say, the validity or reality of that experience.
But does that mean that I might not have had an out-of-body experience, even though I thought I did, in a way, that it was in my mind, that's a possibility?
It depends. What exactly was your experience?
I had many. Some was in lucid dreams, that I woke up and I navigated around in the environment, in the astral realm. Another was that I actually started vibrating, and then I pulled myself out of the body, and I knew my body was lying there. And then I started moving around and going out of my living room and flew out of the window.
Well, that's a classic out-of-body experience.
Okay.
The second one that you described. Both of them probably were. The second one is a classic out-of-body experience. Generally, people have a prelude to an out-of-body experience, which includes vibrations, partial paralysis. I list 15 different phenomena that occurs in my books about the I call it pre-launch phenomena. And when you feel yourself separating, you're separating from your body.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, I would definitely call that a full-flown out-of-body experience.
But then I understand that there's some mixed up opinions about dreams, like where we are. I see that.
Yes, yes. I think lucid dreams, I consider it a continuum of consciousness, and I write about this extensively. A lucid dream is, if you are in a lucid dream, you can upgrade the lucidity or consciousness in that dream and turn it into a full-blown out-of-body experience by elevating the percentage of consciousness in the experience. To me, it's always about the percentage of consciousness, the level of consciousness that's in the experience. Okay. If you can control the experience, if your full I-ness or ego awareness is present, that's an out-of-body experience.
Okay. So, can you talk a little bit about the astral plane? Because to me, that's very mysterious.
Yes, sure, I'd be happy to. The astral plane, everybody calls it, I refer to it as just the astral dimension. It's huge, number one. We have to put it in perspective. It's several hundred times more expansive than the physical, to put it in perspective. I think that's important, number one. People consider it like it's the same. It's just another one level. The astral plane has many vibrational levels. And some people say there's 7. I found it's much more extensive than that. In other words, it has many different energy levels, and when we leave our body, we're vibrating. Our energy body is at a certain frequency or density. Let's use the word density. And the astral has many densities levels, and it depends on your state of consciousness what you experience. If you're experiencing a physical-like representation of the physical, then you're in the lowest section of that dimension. But as we raise our vibration rate through techniques like awareness now that I teach, we enter the higher vibrational levels and less dense regions of the astral. It's all about levels of density, probably the easiest way to understand it. And there's trillions and trillions. We don't even know. No one knows how many. There could be trillions of people living, and there's unlimited amount of realities because they're created by collective thought. And for instance, the middle, what people refer to as the middle astral, is generally where people enter at death. When you hear about this transition of consciousness, they are generally going to around the middle area of the astral, which is consensus realities created by loved ones who are currently living there. And these realities are just like the physical world, many of them. And that's when many people think this is an airy-fairy kind of energy environment. It's not. Most of these realities are created by large numbers of people, just like they do here. I call them consensus realities. For instance, all the believers, let's say all the Buddhists would go to a certain level of Buddhism. They would go to a certain reality. And people have their own realities based on their own state of consciousness. There's realities for Islam. There's realities for, let's just call it right-wing Christians. And all of these realities are molded by the state of consciousness of the collective group. And it's a very firm reality. It's three-dimensional. It's just like the physical. It's subtle, but it's all relative to yourself. So it's in other words, there's countless realities. Most of these realities are very much, surprisingly, like the physical world. They're just less dense.
But that makes sense in the sense that many who have had near-death experiences are saying that, if they are from Islam, that yes, I saw Allah, or Buddhists are talking about Buddha, etc. Because I've heard many accounts of that. But it doesn't make sense when a person who is, I don't know, like all of a sudden experience something else that was a surprise, like all of a sudden went to hell and was this normal, beautiful person, but had this hellish experience. That happens too. And I'm thinking that that didn't fit with their belief system. Because it's not always like that a Christian goes to a Christian heaven in a way.
No, it's more, that's why I use the term, it's about their state of consciousness. It's about their state of evolution as soul. That's another way to look at it. You know, we don't know the state of consciousness of people. Their belief systems are not the only, that's not the primary thing. That's an important part of that makeup of our state of consciousness, but it's not the core issue. I mean, if there's many people that have negative states of consciousness, and we know them. We all know someone that's constantly negative. And it doesn't matter what they believe or what religion they follow. If their state of consciousness is totally fear-based, for instance, totally immersed in this concept of someone's out to get them and there's a devil and all these negative concepts, that's going to influence the reality they experience, because they will go to the reality that resonates with their core state of consciousness. And I think that's exactly what happens. For instance, many people that have near-death experiences, and especially OBE experiences, they don't know what's happening, and they start out fearful. Being fearful in an out-of-body experience, and I write about this in Secret of the Soul, being fearful will create a fearful or fear-based environment. Just like if you're very, very open and spiritual, that will affect your out-of-body experience, because we are interacting. It's a very fluid reality. We are creating, essentially, our own reality often in the way that we hold our mindset or over, and this is a lifetime, many lifetimes for that matter, of our mindset that's intrinsically programmed within us.
Yeah, that's where it gets complicated, because let's say, you know, you go a certain place when you die and I go a certain place, but this is Yannick and William, and if we are multidimensional beings and everything happens now, why is it so important what I do as Yannick now if I have all these other incarnations, so have all these other belief systems?
It's very important that we do the best we can to elevate our state of consciousness to the highest. I talk about this in my latest book, Adventures in the Afterlife. That's what the story was about, of someone dying. On page 7, the lead character dies, and they go to an afterlife reality that is a reflection of their mother's belief system, essentially.
Their mother's?
And their collective belief system. They were believers in a certain, so he ends up with his mother initially. And then he realizes that there's endless other dimensions, and he begins to explore. It's important. Get back to what you were mentioning. This is very important. It's very important that we essentially work on ourselves spiritually, because it's the only thing that we take with us at death is our state of consciousness. No possessions are gone. They're all junk. They're worthless. The only thing we carry with us is our own state of consciousness. And Buddha said this, our job is to purify our own mind, as the Buddha would say. And I'm not a Buddhist, but I understand the truth. The higher we can get our own state of consciousness, the freer we are from fears and false belief systems and negative, let's just say negative beliefs that saturate us. The freer we are, in a sense, the higher the reality we can experience. That's why it is important what we do in the physical world.
Yeah, I'm really realizing that, you know, self-development is not a luxury. You know, it's something important. It's not just a hobby. It's something really important to do.
It's central to our entire evolutionary cycle. We are evolving. And it's so important to recognize that our state of consciousness is it. It is all we have, and we have to really work on ourselves. Whatever method that is for you, everybody's different. You know, everybody talks about different paths. True, but the bottom line is we have to spend make some effort to really, as some people would use the word, cleanse our state of consciousness, to get it as pristine as possible. I talk about this extensively in some of my afterlife talks, about preparing for the afterlife and really taking a hard look at our beliefs and our self-talk that we have. You know, every day we spew 40,000 thoughts, the average person. You have to start to look at, what am I putting out? What am I generating within myself? Is it a positive message to myself and the world around me? Or am I spewing possibly negative messages about ourselves? This influences us because our state of consciousness, all of our thoughts, our beliefs, our self-image, that goes with us. That's the only thing. So it's so important, I feel, to really take a hard look at ourselves.
But am I correct to say that we've never lost that? Okay, we can perhaps, if we had much fear in our lives, we can, reproduce that in the afterlife. But eventually, we have the opportunity to wake up and, get more wisdom and then go to lighter places.
Yes, we're always in a constant state of evolution. But I think it's important that it's important to wake up to the fact that we are it. Nothing's external to us. There's an old saying that Buddha had that no one can save you but yourself. We have to work on our own state of consciousness. Some external belief system is not going to give you some form of, let's just say, enlightenment or salvation. It has to come from within yourself. And I believe that's what spiritual masters have been saying forever. Unfortunately, these concepts have been, let's just say, twisted over many centuries.
What about guides and angels? Won't they be able to help you and enlighten you? I mean, if you are lost?
Yes, to a degree, they're available. Guides are always available. But we have to be open to the guidance.
Okay.
And that is what many people aren't. People become rigid in a belief system. You're born, let's just say you're born into any religion. I'm not going to name names. And that's the only thing you've ever learned your entire life. You know nothing but the doctrine of one religion, let's say. That's a very narrow viewpoint of spirituality in the world. And here, the greatest problem facing humanity is a lack of knowledge about ourselves. It's the cause of all wars. It's the cause of all poverty. It's the cause of all the ills of humanity. If you scale it back, it's due to a lack of spiritual knowledge about ourselves. That's why out-of-body experiences are so important. Out-of-body experiences give us that wonderful, powerful opportunity to actually experience our true self, our inner self, beyond this temporary facade and vehicle of the body.
But how can
Suddenly we become aware, I'm immortal. If I harm another, I'm still responsible for that. Not because there's a judgment, because we continue. There's energy that cause and effect.
But how can you be sure that the out-of-body experience is neutral? That's what I'm wondering about. Doing all of these interviews, I get new thoughts and perspectives all the time. And sometimes I think, what if that's just another thought belief system again? What if I never find the truth? How can I find the truth? And is there one truth? So if I have this out-of-body experience, maybe it's a projection. Again and again, a projection.
That's a very good point. If you're totally indoctrinated into, let's say, any religious philosophy, and you have an out-of-body experience, you're probably just going to re-experience your own philosophies.
Right.
That's why I write about, and in my classes, I teach the concept of experiencing, or make it a goal to experience your spiritual essence in this lifetime. That's the only way you'll ever know. You're absolutely right. If you're totally indoctrinated about some propaganda, it doesn't matter what it is, religious propaganda, and you have an out-of-body experience, you're probably just going to be reinforcing that propaganda. But you have to go beyond that. That's the key. An out-of-body experience doesn't give you all the knowledge unless you go beyond the astral, go beyond the outer dimensions of the universe. This is why I teach a technique called experiencing your higher self. During an out-of-body experience or during deep meditation, when you begin to disassociate from the body, you request or demand to experience your core spiritual essence, or what I call the higher self. If once we experience the higher self, then we go beyond duality. We go beyond the mind and all its games. We go beyond the ego. We're going to the core essence of ourselves, which is non-form based. And that is the benefit that I teach of an out-of-body experience. Having an astral out-of-body experience is the first step out of the crib. That's the first step. Then, during your out-of-body experience, you stop, you center yourself, and you demand to experience your higher self. Then it becomes powerful. When I do this, I feel like I'm shooting up through layers of color within myself. And the next thing I know, I'm floating in what I can only conceive as a sea of white light, pure love, pure awareness. It's impossible to describe this kind of experience. That's where the answers are. The true answers are beyond the duality, beyond all the beliefs of man, because they're all flawed. Anything man made, I have found, is flawed. Let's face it, and I've been saying this for years and years. One of the first things I learned in my out-of-body experiences, when I began to get beyond the astral, was that I'm not a humanoid. Consciousness is not human. Consciousness is using a human body. Consciousness is pure awareness. It has no physical-like form. But it uses a physical-like body for experience, to be able to experience the physical world. But it's in other words, the physical body is just an expression of soul to learn, to grow, to evolve. We're not humans. We're not male and female. None of these things are truly us. When you truly have a spiritual experience, people realize, oh my God, this is what I really am. I'm pure consciousness, no form, but completely, awesomely aware. And you realize that you're the creator of vehicles of consciousness. And you are using your body as a tool for education and evolution. That's where the answers are. And I agree with you. Experiences in the astral plane will not give you the answers to the mysteries of life. They won't. But they're a stepping stone, because you're moving inward. Just like in meditation, it's the same thing. You're moving inward into yourself and into the universe. And all of the answers come from within us. They're never external to us, because we are a microcosm of the entire, for all that is. It's our great task is to go inward, find a method to go inward through deep meditation, through out-of-body experiences, through trance work, whatever it may be, shamanic journey. There's a lot of different methods people are using today, but they all have one direction. They're all going inward.
Lovely. I love hearing that. So interesting. So did I understand you right that you have actually been to these higher levels beyond the astral?
Yes, I have.
Can you explain how that was?
It took, this is not something that happened overnight. I mean, I had experiences that are just, after 40 years of I do a daily technique every day. I've been doing it for 4 decades. And sometimes you have astral experiences, sometimes all kinds of experiences, because the universe is vast. But occasionally I have these type of experiences that are beyond anything. It's difficult to even talk about them, because how do you compare something with no form and no duality and try to share it when there's nothing to compare it to? But I strongly feel that is the real benefit to out-of-body exploration. And it's the real benefit of deep meditation and yoga, essentially, or this concept of union. All of these things fit together. They're not in a box. We have a tendency, because we're in a linear duality universe, we try to put everything in a box. OBE's over here, near death here, meditation here, and it's not so. They're all about going inward. The question is, how far inward can you go with that technique for yourself, so you can go beyond the mind and experience your true self. And that's what's powerful. And that's what self-initiated out-of-body experiences gives us, that opportunity.
So is it possible, for example, to go out of body and experience things on this earth, like the pyramids, or just that I can travel over to you and see what's actually, you know, behind you there that I can't see, but if I was out of body, I could actually see what was there?
Yes, it's possible. People do it all the time. I teach a 6-day workshop at the Monroe Institute, and people have all kinds of experiences. There's no limit to what we're capable of experiencing. But see, that's traveling on a parallel dimension.
Yeah, because I was curious now. What is that then?
That is an out-of-body experience on the lower astral, or what I call the parallel world.
The parallel world. Okay, so, and that's similar to Earth.
Yes, it's because nothing exists in a vacuum. The universe is a multi-dimensional continuum, I have found. The universe is less than 1/10 of 1% of the totality of this vast continuum of energy. We're the outer epidermis layer. The physical world is the epidermis layer. And when you have an out-of-body experience or near-death experience, you're beginning to shift or move inward within the subtle substructure of matter. And that's what people are observing. They're observing, if you only move one level in, you're still observing the physical-like substructure. And science, this whole concept of parallel universes ties into this, that nothing can exist in a vacuum.
Okay. Wow, it's so vast. So I'm curious, have you been like traveling out in the universe and seeing the stars? I mean, that would have been something I would like to do.
Well, there's no limit to what you can do. Eventually you get to a point where physical-like phenomena loses its interest.
Oh. And
you're more involved in finding out I want to know what I am. That, to me, is the great mystery of the universe. That is the greatest mystery. If all of us can solve what we are, then we've solved all the questions of the universe, because we are a microcosm of the entire multidimensional universe. And that's the big question. For many, many years, probably for the first 10 years, I explored parts of the astral, and it was fascinating. It's exciting. You're doing all kinds of things.
Can you tell us a little bit what you experienced, so that people who want to start with this know what they might expect?
Well, first thing most people like to do, and what I like to do, you want to prove it to yourself that it's real. So I went and I observed people doing stuff. And then I called them, asked them,
Really?
When I come back, I would jot down the time of day. And these were I call them etheric experiences. They're the very dense, they're the parallel world experiences when you're still in a dense energy body.
Could they notice you then?
No. No, you're totally out of phase with their no. There are rare cases, but generally, if they do notice you, you would look probably like a vague shadow. Just like, that's what a ghost is. A ghost is a dead person just vibrating slightly out of phase. There's no ghosts, they're just people. We have to grow up eventually and realize that. There are people that are still attached to the physical, so they're hovering very close in vibration. They're just slightly out of phase. But anyway, there's no limit. That's what I recommend people to do. Center yourself, then move away from your body 10 feet, because there's a tendency to be drawn back into your body, almost like a magnetic pull there is. So then, do whatever you need to do to verify it for yourself. But the most important thing that you can do is to demand to experience your higher self. Your higher self now is the affirmation that I use. I move 10 feet or so away from my body, center myself, and then I demand higher self now, or spiritual essence now, whatever phrase resonates with you. And then you begin to shift inward. Your consciousness begins to shift inward to other levels of energy and consciousness within yourself. Because remember, we are the path. Everybody talks like the spiritual path is out there somewhere. We are it. We're a microcosm. As we go inward, we're moving actually inward within our multidimensional self. So the etheric, the astral body is our path, part of the path inward. And then there's the mental body, farther inward, higher vibrational. Then there's the subconscious body, even higher vibration. And then eventually, if we continue to go inward within ourselves, we experience our higher self or our essence, which goes beyond duality, goes beyond form.
That's interesting, because I haven't seen it like that at all. I've seen, like, you know, these layers outside of me.
No, there's no layers outside of you. You are it. They're all within you, different levels of density within you. There's nothing outside of us. That's the great falsehood that's been programmed out there into the group consciousness.
But we still have the aura outside of us, don't we?
But the aura is part of, that's our own energy field. It's still inward.
Okay.
It's less dense.
Okay.
The aura, layers of aura are layers of us.
Right.
It's us. We're walking around with the entire universe all within us. And what people perceive as an aura, they're seeing their etheric energy field. But what is it? It's less dense, isn't it? It's vibrating at a higher frequency. In other words, when everywhere we go, the entire universe goes with us. Because we are the center. We are the microcosm of it.
Yeah.
And that's why the yogis have been saying this for 2,000 years. The path is within us. It's not about a belief system external. It's not about man-made philosophies. We've existed before all human philosophies as consciousness. We are it. As we move inward, we experience our etheric body, or what you call your etheric self, that energy field that we see around us. You go further inward, you enter the astral field, which is us, inside of us, within us. You follow me?
Yes.
That's what's so exciting, though, because once you realize that we are it, there's no need to waste your time looking outside. And that's what many people, that's what I find to be the biggest waste. It's like looking, the answers are not found in matter or in man-made beliefs, because we are the answer. We just have to awaken to the fact that we have to go inward through meditation, through whatever the journey method is. Deep yoga, there's all kinds of forms of deep. I'm not talking about hatha yoga with postures. I'm talking about the deep yogas, the Raja yoga, the Kundalini yogas, where you go inward, inward, inward. That's where the answers are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very exciting.
It is. You gave me some new perspectives now. But I think it's very difficult for my mind. I mean, even though I'm very open for spiritual concepts and everything, and I've had my own experiences, I'm very out there. I'm very into duality. But, you know, I'm a human being. So that's my reference point all the time.
Yeah.
And I haven't been going that much inward, because when I meditate, it's usually just silent. And I don't experience anything. So I haven't found that much inside, in a way. And I'm very, like, intellectually seeking as well. I know that. So it's a journey. Yeah,
that's why I teach self-initiated out-of-body experiences for the last 30 years. Because I found that to be the best. And it doesn't resonate with everyone. There's many. I'm like you. I did not get fulfilled with meditation at all. I mean, I still meditate, but it's a peaceful experience of centering. To me, out-of-body experiences were much more active, it gave me that opening I needed to begin to become an explorer of my inner self. And that resonated with me. It was active. That's why I think it's becoming more and more popular in the United States. I mean, a lot of people are beginning to practice self-initiated out-of-body experiences because they're not getting the results they hope to get from meditation alone. And the meditation, I start with meditation when I do my techniques. I center myself, I deep breathe, and then from meditation, I go into techniques of self-initiated out-of-body experiences.
Yeah, because for me it was like I meditated, and yes, it was nice and calm, but when I started doing these practices for out-of-body experiences, all of a sudden experience this vibrational state was something I have never experienced before. And I was like, I've never had this experience, or I can't remember it. And all of a sudden I got proof and proof and proof that I needed. And yeah, it changed everything. But can you talk a little bit about the actual body that we're in?
Yes. Let's talk about the denser energy body. It's very, very flexible. Remember, we are not physical creatures, beings at all. That's not who we are. That's the first thing. We're not even humanoid. I already said this. It's very important. Our energy body is a construct of our mind, essentially. And when we have an out-of-body experience, it all depends on your own self-conception. You probably were still a female because that's your self-conception of yourself.
I think so, yeah.
But your energy body, not on once, but on several occasions, I initiated an out-of-body experience by stretching my energy body arm. When I was half out of my body, I reached up and grabbed a light in the ceiling of a chandelier type thing and literally pulled my energy body out of my physical body. This was like a 6-foot stretch of my arm. My point is that there's no limitations to an energy body because it's all a vehicle of our consciousness. Matter of fact, you can change your energy body, and I've experienced this, and so have many others. Shamans have been doing this for 10,000 years. You can actually change your entire form.
See, I didn't know that. I thought that I had one physical body, then I had this astral body, and in my mind it was blue and it was very flexible. I was just like this moldable thing, but I thought it was fixed, I guess.
I experienced the same thing also. My experience, if you look at my hands, my hands are often blue.
Right.
They're like blue stars, 1 million of blue stars in my hand, but they're incredibly flexible. It's only limited your own creativity because it's no longer physical. And like I said, I have and other people have, I can change. And what happens, really gets fascinating. As you prolong your out-of-body experiences, your humanoid form slowly begins to dissolve away. This is what probably 35 years ago, 37 years ago, when I realized this, it was a total mind blower because I too thought, well, my astral body is just like my physical body. And then as I prolonged my experiences, I started to my arms and my legs begin to just dissolve away. I no longer needed them. My mind was, I moved through, my mind was moving me. And I realized then that as consciousness, I'm not human. I can be anything I want to be. And this is we have the capability of creating any outer form once we're out of body, if you wish to focus on it. But much more exciting is the fact when you're out of body, you can just remain open-minded. And when you use terms like spiritual essence now, you'll begin to go inward and all that humanoid facade melts away. First, you become like a teardrop of consciousness. I'm using form-based concepts. Then a globe of consciousness, 360-degree vision or perception, because you don't have eyes. People forget there's no air in the afterlife. There's no eyes. There's no breathing. There's no lungs. There's no biological bodies. We are incredible non-physical, non-form-based beings. And it's even logical. There's no air in a non-physical reality. There's no molecular structure. So we have total freedom to create whatever we want. But what's wild is that we slowly revert to what we truly are, which is essentially pure consciousness with the potential to create any vehicle of form, like our bodies. Our bodies are a vehicle, a temporary vehicle of form that is molded for us to have these experiences in the dense epidermis of the universe. But it's wild because we have this capability to explore inward. And don't ever limit yourself to just one biological form, because certainly that's not who we are.
Yeah, I just remember when you talked now that when I was out of body, I got hurt. I flew around and all of a sudden I flew into a building and it was like, ow, and it really hurt. And I'm like, how can this hurt? And I tried to pull my hand through the wall, but I couldn't. But then I was like, hello, Janneke, I'm out of my body. Of course I can, push the door or the wall. And then I managed to do it. And I feel a lot of the times when I doubt that I can fly, when I'm lucid or out of body, then I can't fly. But then I just have to believe I can fly, and then, I take off.
Because your mind is controlling the experience. It's very true. You are creating your own experience through your own inner belief system. And it's very important that that's why it's so important that we cleanse ourselves of any negative or fear-based or limiting beliefs. Now, this may sound strange to many, but this group consensus, 7 billion people on the planet, and they're running around, they all think they're human beings, physical human beings, which is fine. That's what we've been trained to accept this to live in this world. But once we leave our bodies, either through temporary measures or through death, all bets are off. We have the capability of unlimited freedom if we accept it. But unfortunately, most people have never been taught that. They're so indoctrinated with this concept that I'm a human female. They continue to be human females after death. They've only moved this far into the universe.
Okay.
So it's only a fraction. We have to wake up to the fact of who we are. That's what I mean. The greatest threat to humanity is lack of spiritual self-knowledge, because we limit ourselves not only now, we limit ourselves in the afterlife as well.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. And this is because, it's important because these realms are thought responsive, right? So whatever you think about will manifest.
Absolutely.
Right.
The entire universe is thought responsive. And as we move inward into the less dense regions, they become more increasingly thought responsive. So we have to have incredible thought control. That's part of the training we're here for. We need to develop personal responsibility for our thoughts. We need to have ability to focus our thoughts so we can effectively, let's just say, negotiate and navigate in thought responsive environments, which is our true home. The physical world is thought responsive, but it's slowed down tremendously by the density of matter. But we still know today that we create our reality. It just is a tougher slog because matter slows down the process. But once you leave your body, you're into another. It's important to learn the rules of the road, whatever road you're on. That's why I write. That's why I wrote 3 books. I go into extensively about what are the non-physical rules of the road? What are you capable of? What can you do? Where can you go? How do you navigate these various realms? These various dimensional realms have different energy rules. None of them are like the physical, but they still have their own basic concepts, laws of energy, let's call it. We have to learn how to function in these realities. Unfortunately, the religions have done a very, very poor job in teaching people about the afterlife and how to navigate thought responsive environments. they failed in their one thing they should be doing, and that is teaching humanity about that how to function as a spiritual being in the afterlife. How do we maneuver from level to level in this multidimensional universe? This is what I write about extensively. This is what evolution is about. The evolution of consciousness is the inward evolution of us, our consciousness, so we become increasingly aware of our own potential as a non-physical species.
But do you think that everything happens now, like a lot of people are saying, that there's no time?
There's no time. There's no time. No, because we're immortal. When you leave your body, there's no time. The time is just what we call time is just marking of the deterioration of matter.
So everything happens now.
I feel strongly it does. We can't wrap our mind around that, but yes.
Okay.
It's when we leave our bodies, there is no time. I know that for a fact. There's no time. Remember, what's time to an immortal? We're immortal. All of us, all 7 billion of us are immortal. It's wonderful. Well, it doesn't, most people have forgotten the fact that they're immortal, and no one has really stressed that. The religions touch on it, but it's not really taught about that's why it's so important that we learn and we grow about the nature of ourself and our reality. That's why it's so important to learn this stuff.
Yeah, I just got a thought in my head. Like, what if, I were to have an accident tomorrow and die like that? And I didn't have time, to practice everything you said. What can I do? What is the best thing to do? You're there, you're dead, you're in this other place. I mean, is it seeking out the light? I know you have written a book about this, but I just want to hear if you have some thoughts on like what you can do if you have a sudden death.
Well, the first thing I would do is focus on my highest spiritual intention. What I would be doing at the moment of death. I was once on an airplane. I'll give a quick story. I was on an airplane in the States, and an engine gave out, started smoking, and they had to do a crash landing. Wow. This is a 737, a big jet. And it was one engine. There was fire, smoke coming out one engine. And everybody was praying, and a lot of the people were crying. We were in crash positions. And what I did was just focus on my affirmation, higher self now, higher self now, higher self now. I feel very strongly that we have to focus on what we perceive to be our highest intention, our highest spirit. It could have been spiritual essence now. Saturate your consciousness in your highest spiritual intention, number one. Now, this plane ended up landing fine and everything, but it could have crashed. The point is, that is what I would be doing, not only in the process of the death, but after my entry into my transfer. Remember, death is nothing more than a transfer of consciousness from your outer biological vehicle to your inner astral vehicle. It's still not you. It's not soul. That's the problem out there. Everybody has this childish viewpoint of body, mind, spirit. We're much more complex than that. And most people will transfer their consciousness to their astral. During that transfer process, higher self now, spiritual essence now, spirit. And when you arrive when the transfer is complete and you're in your astral body, I would continue that process. This is exactly what the Tibetan Book of the Dead is taught. They talk about going to your higher self, but they use different terminology.
Yeah.
They call it the bardos, and they have their own terminology. But in other words, they clear light of the void, go beyond all form-based realities. In Tibetan Buddhism, they teach that when you're on the other side, you focus on now I enter or now I am, the clear light of the void. It's their terminology for going beyond all form-based realities.
So they knew what they were talking about.
Yes, I feel they do. They just had terminology that's so different than we use in our culture. But I write about this in 2 of my books too, making that as a reference point, that it's all about us and our focus and our intention during these pivotal. Death can be a terrible negative experience. It can be a fear-based experience, or it can be literally a launch pad of consciousness where you can enter and experience your highest spiritual self. It's all, we make it what it is today. And that's the problem that I find out there in our world, that the religions haven't taught these principles. They haven't taught anything about the afterlife. There's very little mention of the afterlife in the entire Bible. The word heaven is used. And Revelation. That's essentially it. There's no description except a brief paragraph in Revelations about this golden gate and the city. That's it. There's no guidance. What we need today is more knowledge about this so that we're comfortable and we have a plan. I feel we need a spiritual plan for our transition. And this is what the Buddhists talk about, the Tibetan Buddhist. Now, it doesn't resonate with a lot of Westerners because it's done in their cultural context. But strip away the facade, and it all comes down to focusing on your spiritual essence at the moment of death, and then during the process, and as you enter the other dimensional realities. That's the key.
I'm realizing that it's so important that we have these conversations, or I felt that a long time. And I just want to end with one question to put science into this. Is there any way we can prove an afterlife or an out-of-body experience?
By having them yourself.
Okay, that's the only way?
That's the best way. There's, unfortunately, it's very difficult to prove to anyone's real satisfaction. But that's why for 40 years, I've said the same thing. Prove it to yourself. I don't care what the rest of the world believes. I'm not trying to sell anything. The point is, we all have our own capability. Have your own experience. Prove it to yourself through your own out-of-body. Do the techniques. They're simple. It's easier than meditation. You just do the techniques I have on my website at astralinfo.org. They're free. They're right on my website. Do it for 30 days. Commit to a daily technique, and the majority of people can have their own experience and prove it to yourself.
I'm glad you said that, because we don't have time to go into all the techniques, but then they can go to your site and get everything there. And there's a lot of stuff online also, so there's a lot of techniques everywhere, so people can find that. I think that's the easy part.
Yes, I have 30 techniques on my website, astralinfo.org, that they can read.
Wonderful.
So they don't even have to buy a book. I couldn't make it any easier.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, William. I love this. This was a lot of new perspectives for me. I learned a lot today. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching, guys. Much light from Oslo. Bye-bye. This